Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the program. This is going to be a difficult interview, but entertaining and profound in a lot of ways. Steve Wheatcroft, a veteran of many seasons on the PGA Tour and also the Korn Ferry Tour, which was the nationwide tour back then, has just released the book. It's called Cocktails and Range Balls, One's Too Many, Tens Not Enough. It's the personal story of his struggles with the drink, what it was like when he was on tour, the habitual drinking that I think it was, and then when it became to be a profound disease. But all through the mix and everything, just his life is fascinating. How he ever made it to the PGA Tour, for one, how he played major college golf, for two. He's been down that road. He's been very vulnerable with some of the problems in his life, but life is much better now that he's in sobriety for some time. Not a downer at all, not with Steve. He's got some quick wit about him. And a couple of years ago, when we started this podcast, somebody mentioned you should get in touch with Steve Wheatcroft. And I didn't know exactly why that was, but now that I know his life story, I've seen his golf on TV. It was very good at one time, but there's more to life than golf. I mean, the premise of this podcast is to talk about golf, but we're trying to find interesting people, and Steve is fascinating. I think the interview will pull that off. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. Better than some of those hard seltzers. Now, we're going to talk about that because our title sponsor is an alcohol company. I've talked with Steve beforehand. Hey, are you comfortable with this? He's going to say some things that are going to settle me down. And anybody that's like, wait a minute, you shouldn't be talking about that with somebody that's in recovery. Steve has a very interesting perspective on that. So we'll get to that in just a moment. If golf real estate is in your plans, nobody better than the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh, Vince Visicaro, and Samantha Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of fine properties in the greater Sarasota area. And if all that golf has got you tuckered out, then go to Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota for red light therapy, cold water plunge, hot tub, massage, whatever you need, because golf can beat you up in more ways than one. Violet Spa has got you covered. All right, so there we go. Steve Wheatcroft. Steve, great to see you, man. Loved your book. I got to tell you, you put it all out there. Very ballsy. You made yourself very vulnerable. Why did you think it was important to really reveal the underbelly and the struggles that you had?
Yeah. Hey, Kevin. Appreciate you having me on, first of all. Yeah, it's just one of those things. When I once I went through the process, I was in we'll get into the story a little later, I'm sure, but I was in a treatment facility for about 35 days, getting myself sober and kind of digging into the meanings on why I was drinking the way I was, or why it turned into a dark road for me. But when I came out, one of the things that I learned in there is that you have to be real, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to speak the truth at all times. And the PGA Tour was going through kind of a weird phase, and sorry, that's probably the wrong way to put it, but we had 3 suicides out on the PGA Tour, which a lot of people don't realize. Everybody heard the Grayson Murray story, and rightfully so. But we also had a club rep named Rusty Estes that was, very integral part of our tour life. I spent 14 years out there with Rusty, walking up and down the ranges and talking with him for years. And then we had another caddy, Ray Scott, that was on the Korn Ferry Tour, who caddied for a friend of mine who decided to take his own life as well. So we had 3 of those in like a 3.5 month stretch. So I knew that the guys out there were hurting. They were going through some things, and I wanted to release something just to let everybody else know that what I was going through and what I had gone through. But it needed to be real. It needed to be honest, and it needed to be very open, because that's the only way you get through to people. You can sugarcoat it and make it seem like it was no big deal. Hey, I found my way through it. But no, you need to let people know that it was a struggle and that I was in the darkest times of my life. And because other people are out there going through the exact same thing, and they need to hear it from someone that they're not the only ones out there. So yeah, I kind of took that same, I had incredible feedback from that. When I posted it on Twitter X, whatever it's called now. I was kind of nervous when I first threw it out there, and then I had over 3 million people read it, and I knew I didn't have one piece of negative feedback, which is crazy for social media these days. But I knew that the message had hit home, and I knew what I did was in a positive light, and it was helping people because they were reaching out to me individually and telling me their stories. So I did the same thing with the book. I was very real, very honest. It's not a dark story. It's not a dark book, and I know you can attest to that too. It's a lot of my own story growing up in the game of golf. My years on tour, I don't sit there and break down every tournament, but I break down a bunch of the fun things that happened to me on tour because I know that's what most people want to hear anyway. But it was an incredible journey and it led me to a great place. But, I do want to tackle what happened afterwards as well, because that's as much of my story now as what the golf was for 20 years of playing professionally.
Well, I just read Jay Delsing's book, and so he talked about life on the PGA Tour and how lonely it can be. And I know for some guys, your time is very organized, but then there's a certain amount of time where there's really nothing to do. So maybe you have a couple beers to unwind from stuff, and maybe it can get too far. But as you pointed out in your book, really the problem drinking didn't happen until you left the game, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But let's go back to the roots of your game. You're a Pennsylvania kid. I am too. I'm a Philly boy. You're a Pittsburgh boy, and there is a big difference.
Oh yes.
But you spent a lot of time and good time at it just hosted USA Oakmont. My bad. Yeah, and the stories that you told about living in the clubhouse reminded me of like some of our past guests here that did about the same thing at the country club in Brookline in Mass. Why don't you tell? I mean, how many summers was it? And you made it seem like it was the time of your life.
It was the time of my life. Looking back now, I mean, I'm 47 years old. It's still the greatest summers I've ever had. When I was 19 years old, I was playing in I can't even remember what it was. I think it might have been the state amateur, a big amateur tournament that was at Oakmont. And I ended up finishing second, had a good tournament. And we were just standing around behind the 18th green. And I just happened to see Bob Ford, the legendary head professional, standing over there. So I went over and introduced myself. We talked for a couple minutes, and I just said, I was working down the street, 20 minutes down the street at another country club, and I'd been there for 4 or 5 years. But obviously Oakmont's the dream course that you'd always love to work at. So I went over and introduced myself to Bob. We talked for a little while, and I just said, hey, look, Bob, if you're ever looking for help next year, I'd be honored to come up here and, help out however I can, whether it's inside the shop, on the range, in the bag room, whatever you need me with. And he was nice enough to give me that opportunity. So I ended up working the 3 summers when I'd come home from college. And the first year I lived in downtown Pittsburgh. And then the 2 summers after that, I lived in the top floor of the clubhouse. And literally, if you looked out my bedroom window, it looked right down onto the 18th green and straight down the fairway. So if you're watching the US Open coverage this past summer, every time they'd show the 18th green, I'd look up and go, there's my bedroom window. But it was wild. But yeah, we would, the normal day was pretty similar. I was there with one of my great friends, Tyler, and he was in the room right beside me upstairs. So we would, stumble downstairs around 8:30, 9 o'clock, get our caddy assignments for the day, go out, caddy 18 holes, put some nice change in your pocket. He'd work the range, I'd work the porch, greeting the members when they'd come in, or vice versa, whatever it was. We'd work a 4-hour shift, something along those lines. And then we'd grab our clubs at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, walk to the first tee, and we'd carry our bags for 18 holes at Oakmont. And you take it for granted. I mean, it was at the time, I think it was the number 4 course in the world. And we just grabbed our carry bags and went out and played every night like it was the local muni. But we'd walk off the green at 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever darkness meant in the summer. We'd walk right off the 18th green, right up the stairs, right to our bedrooms. We'd shower, get changed, and we'd run down into downtown Oakmont or downtown Pittsburgh, depending on how we were feeling, and get after it that night, have a nice dinner, have a few drinks, and, explore the nightlife like all 21, 22-year-old kids do. And then we'd stumble back to Oakmont at 2 a.m. and start it all over again the next day.
Yeah,
it was an absolute blast.
It sounds like it. I felt like I was right there with you, and I was thinking of my buddy at the country club. Didn't sound like he had as much fun. I think they were a little stricter on the rules. You couldn't have house guests and everything, but they were pushing the envelope as any 19-year-old should be doing. I mean, if you're not like occasionally getting called in the office, you're not pushing as much as you should. But
believe me, there were strict rules there. There were very, very strict rules there. We fought that gray line like you've never seen before. And it was a matter of, because Bob lived right on property, he was there right off the 18th fairway at the time. So it was very much a balancing act of, hey, are we really going to try to get somebody back to the to the clubhouse? Are we going to keep this party going at the golf course? Are we going to try to, heaven forbid, sneak a golf cart out onto the golf course, not get caught? Like, we had to tiptoe the lines, but we definitely had some fun.
Oh, I did too at the golf clubs that I worked at too, like the carts and everything, just trying to be sneaky and stealth. But that's part of growing up and pushing it. And I think we were caught more times than we knew. They just didn't bring it up. Like, yeah, I saw you doing that. So at some level, maybe they respected it and they were doing it too at a younger age.
I'm sure it's not their first rodeo either. They know what's going on.
So I'm glad you talked about your college days at Indiana and your coach, Sam Carmichael, because he was the coach there when I was playing for Joe Campbell at Purdue. And why don't you, I didn't know what a hard ass he was, but you found that out very quickly early on. Why don't you tell the story about your first meeting with Sam?
Yeah, I always tell people, like, and Sam is a sweetheart in nature. I mean, now that I go back, I'll visit him once every 5 years maybe, but I'll stumble by Martinsville Country Club where he's still out there driving a tractor at 80, whatever he is now. But he's been great ever since. We speak all the time when I'm up there, but there's a reason he and Bobby Knight were best friends. Their coaching styles were very similar. It's a lot of tough love. It's a lot of get your shit done and handle your own business, one of those things. And if you don't follow the rules, if you're late for a bus trip, it never happened to me, but I watched him leave a guy that was a minute late and said, nope, if you can make it to the airport in time, we'll take you. Otherwise you're on your own. There was a time that, a guy didn't make it on time and he took his own flight down there and he played 4 instead of 5. And he told the guy, no. That's just the way he was. And I mean, I loved it because it was the kind of kick in the butt that I needed and established my practice regimen where I would, we had a first team All-American on the team and I would just shadow Randy wherever we went, but I followed his work ethic as well. I figured if it's working for him and I'm the last guy on the team, I might as well try to do whatever he's doing. But Coach Carmichael was great. I begged him for a walk-on tryout because I knew I was a terrible golfer and I had no business being there, but I loved Indiana and I loved the business program and the university itself. And after getting, I think, 6 no's, he finally got tired of hearing from me and I saw him in person, introduced myself. And as I said in the book, his exact words were, Jesus Christ, kid, fine, I'll give you a 6-month tryout and then I'm going to cut you. And I truly went into it like thinking I was going to get 6 months of free range balls. And that was good enough for me. I'd be good with that. If he can cut me and I'll go on, get my business degree, probably end up in the golf world somewhere or in the sports world somewhere because I always loved sports in general. But I was fine with that. And then luckily, he loved my work ethic. He kept me around for the spring. Something happened that summer. He told me to go out and try to play some more national events or, a little bigger, push myself a little bit. And I won the first amateur event when I came home. And then I got into the U.S. Amateur and the Western Amateur later that summer, which was phenomenal for, a walk-on at Indiana. And I didn't do anything in any of the tournaments, but it was still the fact that I was there playing against the best in the world. And things just kind of started to escalate from there.
Tell me about Coach Knight. You got to have some stories there. And then when you're done, tell me that I'm going to tell you my Coach Knight story with Ben, who I used to play with. He was number 3 on Indiana's team. I was number 3 on Purdue. And I'm like, you got any Coach Knight stories? And off he was rolling. But I'm sure you got similar ones. So let's hear them.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to start with Coach Knight stories, is it okay to swear on the podcast?
Absolutely. You already have. Okay. And so have I. So,
I did by accident one time. So I got to make sure. But it's hard to tell Coach Knight's story without doing that. So first off, if you haven't seen this yet, Coach Carmichael and Coach Knight actually teamed up for a morning show. I think it was called Golf My Way. You got to find the outtakes. It's on YouTube. They are hilarious. Sam would sit there, Coach Knight would get in a bunker with a, sand wedge and Coach Carmichael would teach him how to hit the shots, open the club face, get your feet wider. And then he'd hit the shot. And Sam was always the consummate, motivator. He's like, okay, that was really good. You did this well. And Coach Knight, after every take, was, that was horse shit. That sucked. Son of a, he's throwing clubs. It is hilarious. You can go find them. It looks like the outtakes were filmed in like 1945. The video is so bad, but you'll get the concept and you'll get all the wording. It's great. But yeah, one of my funniest ones with Coach Knight was I was on the putting green and the putting green kind of overlooked the driving range. And there was Will Carson, a senior from California. And Will was about 5'6", weighed about 140 pounds and had this nice fluid golf swing. He didn't hit it very far, but just consistent, really good player. And he was hitting balls, and then Coach Knight was right behind him hitting balls. So Will kind of had headphones in, doing his own thing, not paying attention to Coach Knight at all. And I was watching, and Coach Knight was hitting drivers, and he got one, and he got it really good. And you could see that he was proud of it, right? So he hits it, and then Will kind of swings the driver and one hands it. He knew he mishit it, and it flew Coach Knight's by probably 40 yards. And I could see kind of the steam start building in Coach Knight's ears, and he kept going back to his driver, hitting a few more, and then Will didn't even know anything was going on. But Coach Knight pounds one, and you could tell he just loved it. Hit this high little baby draw, and I mean, it was hammered for him. And Will stepped up and hit one, same thing. It went 45 yards by his. And Coach Knight had enough, and he took his driver and he slammed it off the ground. And I guess the noise was enough to get Will's attention, because Will turns around and he goes, "God damn it, boy, you're fucking 5'6", 125 pounds soaking wet, and you're flying my fucking driver by 40 yards. He's like, "I hate this goddamn game." And he just grabbed his clubs and walked to the car. And Will just started laughing. He had no idea any of this stuff was going on, but it's like, there's Coach Knight in a nutshell. I mean, he was just, he was so proud of what he was doing, and then he got humbled in 5 seconds and, didn't have an answer for it. So he just walked to the car and left.
Well, golf will do that to you. And I think we all know that Coach Knight had a foul mouth. He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another big college basketball coach that this may surprise you. Mike Krzyzewski. I had no idea until when I was working in television in Boston at NBC Sports Boston. Jay Heaps, who was a bench warmer for the Duke basketball team, but also the number one soccer player at Duke, was telling me all these Coach K stories. And like every other word out of his mouth was an F-bomb. And I'm like, finally, I'm just like, "Jay, is this your language or is this Coach talking?" He's like, "Oh, that's how Coach talks." I'm like, "He is that foul a mouth?" He's like, "Oh, he can't say a sentence without the word fuck in it." And I'm like, I never would have guessed, because he looks so buttoned up and everything.
Yep.
He has roots at Army, as Coach Knight did, but I think we know profanity and the military kind of go together. All right, so he's
the silent assassin. Yeah, he was. I've heard the same thing. I had Jay Billis on our podcast a few months ago, and he alluded to the same thing. He's like, yeah, he's one of those understated guys. He's very buttoned up during the interviews and stuff, but when you get him in a closed locker room, he cusses up a storm. Well,
even on his recruiting trips, when he was in a recruit's living room, he would just tell his recruits' parents, he said, "I have a foul mouth. I can't help it. I've tried to stop. I can't. Are you okay with this?" He's gonna get good guardianship and tough love. I'll be like a father figure. But if the language is a problem, we can't go any further. And then they're like, "Yep, we're good." And so back to Coach Knight. So I'm playing with this kid, Ben, and we played pretty regularly. And I'm like, "You got any Coach Knight stories?" He's like, "Yeah, we play golf with him kind of regularly." I'm like, whoa. So it turns out Ben and one of the other guys on the team wanted to play with Coach Knight, and Sam Carmichael, he was the golf coach, and Coach Knight, you just expressed how good of friends they were. So they asked Sam, "Hey, can you introduce us to Coach Knight?" So they get a phone call from Bobby Knight. And this is back when you had voice recorders as a message. Yep. And so Bobby Knight calls Ben, "Hey, it's Coach Knight here. You want to play golf? Meet me at the red course." Like back then you had the red and the white course at Indiana, right?
Okay. Yep. They were done before I was there, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So meet me Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So they go up there. Coach is already hitting balls. He's waiting for them. They said he couldn't have been nicer. And all he asks is, "Can we just not talk about basketball? This is my only break from basketball. My life is basketball all the time. We can talk about school. We can talk about life. We can talk about hunting and fishing." And he said Ben said it was like the best day of his life. Coach could not have been nicer to them, thank them for showing interest in wanting to play. And they did it on the regular. So this is a side of Coach Knight that not a lot of people know, but I guess you do, right? Does that sound like a reasonable story?
Yep. Very, very much so. He was very, and that's a perfect way to put it. He didn't want to talk about basketball. He just wanted to get away from everything, be his own man. Let's go play golf. Let's get away from things, and let's just enjoy a friendship for what it is, right? It doesn't have to be legendary basketball coach, doesn't have to be college golfer, doesn't have to be, let's just, it's Ben and Bob playing golf together. And I like your personality, you like mine, one of those things. But, Coach Knight did stuff all over the campus all the time with different students, with different, groups, fraternities, whatever it might have been, just anything where not only donation wise, but, spending his time and just being a mentor. And he got a bunch of bad publicity, and trust me, a lot of it was on him as well. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to spin that narrative because he was definitely out of line with some of the things, but the coaching carousel also changed so much over the years. And, that style of coaching worked for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden it became, we don't have to get down that road, but now all of a sudden, a lot of the coaches needed to be a little more softer, a little more player friendly and whatnot. And Coach Knight's mentality just didn't work. And it was bound to come to a head sooner than later, but no, he was such a great man. He did so many great things around the university and very misrepresented in his philanthropic ways off the basketball court.
So let's get into your golf, Steve, the way you tell it in your book. Cocktails and range balls, one's too many, 10's not enough. It almost seemed like you never imagined that you could be a solid PGA Tour player. This is almost like an accident. Why don't you tell it and put it in your words?
Yeah, no, you hit it dead on the head there. I grew up in a world where professional golf was it wasn't any, I grew up in Pittsburgh. It's cold, it's miserable. You don't play a whole lot of golf. You play it for a few months in the summertime in between baseball and football seasons or baseball and basketball seasons, whatever it might have been. But, I played because, I enjoyed the game as a young kid. It was just another sport to play. I was competitive with everything, but I played baseball for 10 years, basketball for 8 years, golf, since I was probably 6 or 7, in junior tournaments, things like that. I skied all the time. I played volleyball on the side. I was just doing anything I could do just to be competitive. Right. And, so I just slowly eliminated the sports. I got down to either baseball or golf. And there was something about the individuality of golf that I loved, where I got snubbed for a big all-star team when I was 14 that I really thought I deserved a shot to be on. And they took the coach's kid that was out for half the year with a broken arm instead. And I just took that very personally and just said, you know what, if I go out and shoot 68 on a golf course, nobody can tell me no, or nobody can say, hey, you didn't win this week. So it was kind of more in my hands. And it's like, hey, if I shoot 76 and I'm not good enough, then that's fine. I can live with that because that's on me, but it's not in somebody else's hands. And I think that part of the game just really drew me to it. And so, I was not a great high school. I was an average high school player, to say the least. As I wrote in the book, the greatest accomplishment I had in high school was qualifying to get to the Pennsylvania State Championships when I was a junior. And I shot 96.85, I think, at Penn State and finished almost dead last. And it's cold, miserable weather, but no excuses. I was near the bottom of the pack and I was terrible. But I had a 78 average in high school. That doesn't do crap anymore. You look at these All-Americans now, and I play with, the best 16-year-old in the world all the time down here in Jacksonville. His scoring average in junior tournaments is probably 67, 68, maybe.
Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Miles?
Yeah. Yep. So Miles and I are great friends. We play at Atlantic Beach all the time. But watching his game and trying to think like, hey, he's trying to get to where I was, and he's probably got my scoring average by 11 shots, in high school. And, somehow I managed to get to the PGA Tour, and, he's not there yet. He's going to be, barring some weird thing happening. But, but it's just like I had no business being there. And even when I went to Indiana, I had no business being at Indiana either. I didn't get any recruiting letters. I was, a couple of Division III and NAIA schools were looking at me with some academic money, but I just went to Indiana because I loved the university. I loved Bobby Knight's basketball program. I loved Big Ten football. I loved everything about it other than the golf, but I just wanted to go see if I could be a part of a team there. And I guess I bugged the guy enough to get me there. And then even, I got better every year in college, and I was a 2-time All Big Ten. Not that means a whole lot, but, I was at least progressing up the ranks. And when my senior year came, I was playing with these same guys from Iowa, Penn State, Michigan State that I'd played with for 4 years. And, when you're out there with 5 hours for a guy that you've known for 4 years or 3 years, you start talking and having conversations about, hey, what's next for you? And they all kept saying to a T, it's like, I'm going to turn pro. And I was like, I just remember my first thought was, it what? Like, I've been beating you for 4 years and I suck. Like, so what's that make you? And I truly didn't understand it, because like turning professional was just something, it was still a different realm. It's like, no, we're average college golfers. Like, we're not even the best at what we do in college. Like, what makes you think you're going to go out there and play with Tiger and VJ Singh and Ernie Els and all these guys that are the best in the world? Like, no, we're average college players. But again, like everybody kept saying they were doing it. I'm like, am I missing the boat here? Is this something I should be looking into? And that's more or less the only reason I even tried it. I tried to raise a little bit of money. That was another side story where I had a gentleman offer to pay me all of it for 3 years, or a big sum of money for 3 years. And then he backed out once I'd already moved. And then I was working 2 jobs. So my start at professional golf was about 1 month of actual training and getting ready to play professional golf, where I Monday qualified into a PGA Tour event. And then I moved down to West Palm Beach area and thought I was set for the next 3 years financially with this backer. And then my as I said, my start to professional golf was caddying at Seminole in the morning, waiting tables at a sports bar in the afternoon, evening, and then sneaking out to North Palm Beach driving range at 10 o'clock at night, trying to get one bucket of yellow stripers in before I could, go to bed and start the whole thing over again the next day. So,
and that's all true. And it was interesting. So the sports bar Duffy's, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Duffy's.
Did a 5-year-old kid really yell at you that he didn't have enough honey mustard?
That little bastard looked at me like I was the scum of the earth, man. I love kids to death, but I'll never forget that little bugger. He, I just remember it was one of those days too, where I'm probably just struggling being in there because, as I told, Bob Ford, the Oakmont pro that we talked about earlier, Bob was down there at Seminole, obviously. And I walked over the one time and they said, you got seated at table 4. And I looked over and it was Bob and his family. I was like, son of a gun. Like, I feel so low right now because he knew my dreams and he knew what I was thinking about doing. And he knew that, I Mondayed into a PGA Tour event 3 weeks before that. And now I'm waiting on he and his family at Duffy's. And I know he didn't think twice about it, but man, I sure did. But yeah, I just remember walking over to this one family. It wasn't Bob's family, but another family. And this kid started yelling at me that I didn't bring him enough honey mustard. And his parents just looked at me and like, instead of saying, hey, bud, just relax. Like we can get more honey mustard. They just looked at me like the same thing. I was like, okay, I see where, apple didn't fall far from the tree, I guess. But yeah, he just let me have it for not bringing enough honey mustard for his chicken fingers. But yeah, humbling, man. Humble. I've been humbled a lot in my life, but yeah, that's one of the first ones that I will not forget.
Well, let's talk about the humblings. To me, you had a great PGA Tour run, but to read it, I felt like there was a lot of struggle, losing your card, going back and forth and everything, all in the book. Absolutely worth your time reading. But the drinking part, what was it like when you were on tour and then it accelerated once you left professional golf? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like pretty much any other PGA Tour player where I would, I wouldn't drink during the weeks. I would usually take, especially early on in my career, I wouldn't drink at all during the weeks. Maybe on a Tuesday night, if we were going out with some friends or having a nice dinner, doing something like that, I'd have a couple drinks, but then I'd shut it down Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, whatever it was. And then, have a couple Sunday night, have a couple Monday night, nothing crazy, nothing out of control. We weren't going clubbing. We weren't going bar hopping. We weren't doing anything stupid, right? It was just have a couple drinks with your buddies and have a couple beers with your friends, one of those things. And I think the older I got, the more I would, maybe have a couple more. Maybe I would start having a couple at night during tournament weeks, which again, I'm not going out and getting drunk. I would have, 2 drinks at dinner and go home and drink water all night and get ready to go for the next day. And it wasn't affecting my golf at all. It wasn't affecting, I wasn't waking up hungover or anything like that. But I mean, it was always in control. If I needed to stop drinking, I could stop drinking. It was just something I liked to do. It helped relax me a little bit at night. I wasn't one of those guys that went out with a ton of friends for dinners. Like I liked my alone time. So I would, my favorite thing to do was I'd go to like a Bonefish Grill and I'd sit at the bar and I would order dinner. I'd have probably 2 cocktails and I'd watch whatever sporting event was on TV and I would just zone out, right? It was my time to just get away and relax and, just watch a sporting event, have a nice dinner. And, but I would do that all the time. But that was basically the extent of my drinking, right? And then my last couple of years, I started, I'd fly into town and I'd grab something for in the room, just, a bottle of something. So I'd have a drink that if I came off the golf course and got done practicing, doing all my stuff, I'd come back, just sit in the room and have a drink there. Again, was never really out of control with it. I didn't do it for any bad reasons. Maybe it was just, me getting older and getting a little more accustomed to it. I don't know. But again, like at no point in my golfing career, I played 20 years of professional golf, and looking back now, with the exception of maybe 2019, my last year on the Korn Ferry Tour, because I was coming off of 4 years on the PGA Tour from 2015 to 2018. And then I kind of saw the writing on the wall and I knew I was going down a bad road, and I was missing cut after cut on the Korn Ferry Tour, which I didn't want to be on anyway. So yeah, that year probably got a little more, hey, woe is me. I'm down in the dumps. I'm drinking on the road. Again, I really wasn't waking up hungover, so to speak, but it probably, that was probably a little bit more of the darker drinking that I hadn't experienced before.
but there was still a much lower depth that you got to when you started working
100%.
in the financial world, and it became like your friend, and you spelled it all out there. When did you finally say enough's enough? Because you were, doctors had told you your next drink is going to be your last drink. And your wife didn't even know it.
No, she knew I was fading. She knew that I just wasn't the same person. She told me that. She's like, I don't even know who you are anymore. Like, cause I looked different. I was gaining all kinds of weight. I wasn't motivated to do anything. And I should probably go back a little bit. So I retired in 2019, but I had full status on the Korn Ferry Tour. I finished 43rd, 44th on the money list, top 25 got cards. So I wasn't even that far from getting back to the PGA Tour, but I just had enough. I was tired. I was burnt out. I was 41, I think at the time, 42 years old. And I'm playing against 21, 22-year-old kids now that were just way better than me, to be honest. And I wanted to be home and be a dad to my kids. And so I retired. And with COVID, I ended up getting like 35 starts in the Korn Ferry Tour, and I never used any of them. They finally expired last year. But I walked away from the game and I didn't miss it, which was weird. I thought I was going to miss it like crazy, and I didn't miss it at all. I remember watching golf tournaments and my wife asking, hey, do you miss this? And I was like, no, I really don't. I mean, I miss playing good golf on the PGA Tour because there was no high better than that. But I don't miss the travel. I don't miss the practice. I don't miss, that lifestyle was great, but my time is done. So I got into the financial world, like you said, and I was doing well in that. I kind of took on the same mentality, just grinder, hard worker. I passed all my licensing exams first try, flew through that, was up and running. I didn't think I was doing a great job, but all my bosses and mentors kept saying, hey, you're doing a phenomenal job. I was even winning awards with the company for being one of their, the rookie of the year in the Southeast territory, whatever it might've been. But yeah, just somewhere along those lines, I started waking up and I was like, man, I'm just depressed. And I don't know why I'm depressed. I've never been depressed in my life. And a day turned into a week, turned into a month, turned into 2 months, whatever it was. And I had a big case that was supposed to go through one morning. We needed the commission as a family. Times are getting real tough financially. And, the guy texted me that morning at 7:15. He's like, hey, we're going to hold off at least 18 months on implementing all this stuff. And, nothing against you. We're just not ready to pull the trigger on it quite yet. I mean, normal business happens all the time, but it was just a big case and I lost it. I kind of had a panic attack and freaked out. Where do I go from here? One of those kind of things. And, the house was empty. My kids were at school. My wife went to go for a workout and I walked over and poured a big old glass of vodka, sat down on the couch and turned on the Sports Center. And about 20 minutes later, realized how relaxed I was, enough so that I poured another one. And that was the beginning of a new chapter. As I said in the book, that's where part of me died, that drink. I found a new best friend. I found, probably a couple new best friends, one in the bottle and one in the secret that I had to, protect and carry with anything I had. Nobody could know about it. And I could have worked for the CIA as well as I had this secret. Cause I had bottles everywhere. I was sneaking at any chance I could get it. It got to the point where I was drinking morning, noon, night every day. Hiding it from everybody. And I was a functioning alcoholic. You'd never know. I could go coach baseball. I could, go to work meetings. I could go do whatever. And I had a nice buzz going. And it's not something I'm proud of by any means, but it wasn't that, I'm not falling into bushes. I'm not sloppy. I'm not passing out on the floors. I wasn't that guy. But I just knew that I was drinking to kill anything inside of me. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel depression. I didn't feel anything at all. And that's the way I kind of wanted to live because it was easier that way. I didn't have to face any of my problems, any kind of stressors that would come up. I would just drink them away so they would fade away. Now, granted, it didn't fix shit. Nothing got better in my life. It was a way to push it down the road a little bit further. Right.
Right.
And then,
you ended up at rehab and
yep.
It was a great experience for you, but there was struggle with that. And how long have you been sober, Steve?
It'll be 19 months here. And what? Actually today, shoot. Yeah. 19 months today, the 2nd, right? Yeah. December 2nd. So yeah, it's been 19 months and I'll be honest, like the drinking hasn't been a problem. Like I knew 3 days into my rehab stint that it wasn't the drinking that was the problem. I just needed to peel back the layers of this onion and figure out why the hell I hated myself now, why I was so, why I was depressed, why I was down in the dumps, why I didn't like who I was, and like why I couldn't look in the mirrors anymore. What was the real reasons behind that? And it was just an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was without the game of golf. I didn't know who I was without that structure. And you read about it all the time with different athletes coming out of the NFL or Major League Baseball. It's like once you remove that part of your life, that's all you've known since the time you were 12 years old. And now all of a sudden you're 42 years old and you're starting over a new life and you don't know what your purpose in life. You don't know why you're here. It's a scary, scary place to be. And and as I tell people, there's a fork in the road, and I could have easily grabbed a phone and reached for help and called a therapist. Instead, I reached for a bottle and went down that road instead. But the alcohol was never a problem. And, we talked about it off air a little bit. It's like, it doesn't bother me now. I'm around it all the time. I don't have a problem. If my wife needed a glass of wine, I can go open a bottle of wine and pour her a glass of wine. I might even smell the thing just to, because I always love the smell of red wine, but it doesn't affect me. It doesn't make me want to grab another glass. I know now what I didn't know then. And I know that it's not going to fix anything for me. It's not, alcohol never fixed anything. It's just going to make my life worse. And now that I know what I know, it's so easy to turn a blind eye to it. And I don't even think twice about it anymore.
Well, you found purpose in creating the foundation and doing the podcast. Tell me about those and what voids they've filled for you and the fulfillment you get doing them.
Yeah, the foundation was kind of I never thought I was going to go this road either, but I saw the power of my first statement left in the world with the mental health side of things. And I wanted to do more with it. So I went to the PGA Tour that's right down the street from me. And I know all those guys real well. So I just said, look, I'd love to work for you guys as a kind of a bridge role between the players and the mental health resources that they have on file. Because when I was looking for help, I was at the bottom of the barrel. I scrolled through all the resources they have, but I wasn't comfortable calling any of them. And I've told them that. It's not like they were bad resources. I just wasn't comfortable doing that. So I reached out to 2 other PGA Tour players that had openly talked about their struggles with alcoholism, and they had recovered, they were on the better side of it. But I was more comfortable reaching out to them and trying to get them to point me in the right direction than I was going to the resources. Anyway, long story short, that road did not work out. PGA Tour decided to go a different route with it. So a friend of mine just said, hey, quit asking to help people. Like, just go help people. Do this the right way. Just start your own nonprofit. And as I told him, I was like, I don't know the first damn thing about running a nonprofit. He's like, good, you don't have to. He's like, your job is to go out there, tell your story, create awareness around this, create different platforms, find easier ways for guys to get the help that you were looking for so many years. But open these doors up for other people that need the help, and hire a board of directors that can help you run this thing, hire an advisory panel that can help you spread the mission. And that's what we did. I started it, and I really didn't know what to be doing right out of the gates. But then it's slowly taken shape. Originally, it was going to be more working with the professional side of the game only, because I could relate to that the easiest. And then I realized quickly that I would much rather impact younger children that haven't had that stigma ingrained in them for so many years about working on their mental health. So if we could take more of a grassroots approach and start with the first tee, the AJGA, the NCAA, at those ages, and just give them the tools to help better manage their own mental health, anxieties, things like that, whether it's on a golf course, before taking a test at school, social media problems, whatever it might be. Just give them some tools, and then also give them some resources that if it does escalate, that we can help cut this thing off before it gets to a critical point. But luckily the doors have been opening quickly. We're getting ready to announce a huge initiative here in the spring. We're partnering with the PGA Tours event, the CJ Cup, the Byron Nelson. Mm-hmm. So their main sponsor is the Momentous Institute. That's the charity they give to. It's a huge mental health facility down there in Dallas. But the 3 of us are partnering up. We're collaborating on this thing, and then we're just pulling in the best resources from around the country. The Jed Foundation, the OnRise, Mindflow, the AJGA, the First Tee, the LPGA, the PGA Tour. We're getting NCAA programs, one by one. We're going to pull all these people together and create a full-blown mental health pipeline in the game of golf, starting at age 5 with the First Tee programming, all the way through retirement from the game, and helping players, transition out of the game. So we're really, really excited for that. And it'll be launching we're already doing some work now in the background, but we're going to have our official announcement in the April-May timeframe, right around Mental Health Awareness Month.
Well, we'll follow up with that. And the one thing you said, like finding an identity, and I'll never forget, seeing an interview with Tom Pernice Jr., who is a teammate. He was with Duffy Waldorf, Corey Pavin, Steve Pate. I mean, guys that you played with, and Jay Delsing. And so he was the best of those guys in college, struggled on the PGA Tour. And he said something, and it was like his spoken words were my thoughts. He said, I couldn't believe how much of my self-esteem was wrapped up in my golf. If I was playing bad golf, I thought I was a bad person.
Yep.
I think anybody that's played high-level competitive golf, at some point, you're going to have those conversations and thoughts in your head, and it's just like, this is just a game. This isn't who I am. My dog doesn't care how I played. You know, my wife and kids make, you know, because it's your livelihood and everything, but it's not who you are. And I think you found a nice path for you. Steve, how's your golf right now? What's your relationship with golf? How much you're playing, and is it any good?
It's funny. I hated it for a few years. Obviously, when I was going through all this stuff, I would go out and I wasn't practicing. And then because I was a full blown alcoholic trying to play golf, I obviously didn't have the touch, didn't have the technique with the irons. And I'd go out and shoot 82 and I'd be depressed as all hell, and just meant more reasons to drink. And it was a vicious spiral. So I hated going out. I hated playing the pro-ams, the fun events that I used to love playing, the pro members. And then, once I found sobriety and got myself back into it, I slowly integrated golf back into my life. And I'm at a point again where I love the game for what it is, and I'm having fun playing the game. I have no expectations on it. I know that I don't like hitting range balls anymore. For a guy, I tell people all the time, God gave me an allotted number of drinks and range balls I was allowed to have in my life, and I just used them all up by the time I was 42. I have no desire to go to the driving range and practice anymore. I go there and I grab a bag or two and I hit about 30 balls and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to get out of here. But I love playing the game of golf. I love playing with friends. I just love having the camaraderie. If I hit a couple great shots, awesome. My last 4 rounds, I can tell you, were 64, 75, 65, 73. I have no idea what's going to show up, but I know that 64 is still in there somehow. And I hit it 250 yards off the tee. I can only carry it. And going through what I went through, I lost 50 yards off the tee ball. And I'm trying to get that back slowly, because it is humbling going out there and playing with these guys like the Miles Russells, who hit it 40 to 50 by me on every shot now. I'm trying to compete with them and still beat them with my game. I mean, it is possible, and I'm still doing it some, but it's a lot easier when you're up there 10 yards behind them. But I just, if I hit it 250 yards and I go up there and I hit 2 or 3 more irons into the green, but I'm pretty good with a 5-6 iron, and I feel like I'll still hit the greens, and I can still chip and putt with the best of them. So,
but tell me this, like the 64 and 65, that does the spirit great. I imagine you kind of float away like, ooh, that feels good.
It's fun.
Does the 73 and 75 bother you once you leave the golf course? Or okay, that's good.
And I learned that's the first lesson.
I'm not there. Okay. I'm like, I got a foot on the bridge.
To your point about the identity, that's the first thing I teach kids now is like, your identity is not tied to your golf game. And you need to remember that, because it's so hard to get wrapped up in the opposite. And because you shoot 65 in a tournament doesn't make you a better human being. Because you shoot 79 in a tournament doesn't make you a terrible person. It's just, you had a bad day at work, or you had a bad day at a game you play. That's all it is. It doesn't change you as a person unless you let it. And that's why, like, now when I go out, if I shoot 82 or something and it's a little embarrassing and I'm chunking wedges and doing something, that's like, okay, like, I get frustrated. It is what it is. But I'm like, I don't practice. So what am I, if my swing's off, my swing should be off because I don't practice. So maybe it is time to go to the range and actually try to figure out a way to hit the golf ball first again. But no, I really don't care. Before, it would have sent me into a spiral and just given me another reason to get drunk for a couple of days, and like I needed it. But, again, it reinforced all that negative behavior in my own brain. And now I don't care. I mean, if I hit bad golf shots, I hit bad golf shots. I did it when I was on tour. I'll do it again. But I enjoy playing for, like, let's go gamble for a little bit of money just to keep it interesting and fun. So we're all competitive, and let's just have a blast on the golf course, tell some fun stories, laugh our butts off, and, enjoy the game for what it is.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. That's good perspective for all of us. How can people get the book, and how can they help you out with the foundation? Yeah,
Amazon is the easiest place to get it right now. I'm going to get to the audiobook here shortly. I need to find some time where I can actually sit down and record it all out. But I've got hardback, paperback, and Kindle on Amazon right now. So just go to Amazon.com. Cocktails and Range Balls. It's up there. You'll find it. The foundation, it's themulliganfoundation.org. You can kind of get a little bit more of an in-depth look at what all we're doing over there. We don't have a lot of it updated with the new pipeline stuff yet because we're kind of waiting to launch it all together at the same time. But you can get a nuts and bolts of what we're still doing behind the scenes here. And there's donation links and everything else if it's something that drives your passions. But yeah, we're just excited for where we're headed. We've got a lot going on. One of the companies I'm actually starting with, as well as another company called OnRise, they're helping us on the pipeline. But I actually became a licensed peer support specialist just to be able to help some of these NCAA college kids that are really struggling with taking the next step and trying to figure out where they're going to transition out of the game. So I'm passionate about that, but I'm doing that part-time just because I wanted to know more about it, to be honest with you. And I wanted to see, another avenue to help people. But yeah, just continuing to spread the message and try to open doors. It's funny how I'll give you one last side story on the book, and it's a really cool story. But I'd been told for years to write this book. Oh, Steve, you got so many stories from the tour and yada yada, and I put all those stories in the book too. In between each chapter, I put a fun side story from the tour. But I just kept saying like, no, I'm not going to write a book. Nobody's going to read this. And then a friend of mine who's in kind of the recovery circle said, hey man, you need to write a book. And I was like, yeah, I've heard this before. He's like, no, you don't get it. You don't write it for you. You write it for him. And I was like, all right, you got my curiosity piqued. Who's him? And he's like, you'll know when you write the book. That's all I can tell you. And it was enough to get my brain thinking and, spinning. It's like, okay, should I actually try this? And I sat down one night, started jotting notes down and some different ideas, stories I wanted to get in there. And then all of a sudden the book started coming out and it came together and I self-published it on November 4th. It hit Amazon. And hand to God, November 5th, I woke up and I was scrolling through LinkedIn and there was a message on there and it was from a PGA Tour player. And he's like, hey man, I know we don't know each other all that well, but I really need you to call me if you can. Here's my number. I'd love to talk. So I called him and sure enough, it was a guy playing very good golf. But he was in a dark spin with alcohol himself and knew that it wasn't sustainable and he was going to end up down a really, really bad road if he kept going down it. And so now we've been working together for whatever it's been now, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just on getting him to a better place. And it's like, man, it took 15 hours for me to find who him was. But it's very impactful on just the words again. It's like, I don't do anything crazy. I'm not curing cancer. I tell my story, but I tell it in a way that gets people's minds going, shit, that's me. I thought I was the only one thinking that way. And because I've seen it happen, I went to, that's how the first AA meeting happened for me is I listened to this guy that we had nothing in common, but he started talking about his drinking. I was like, holy shit, I do the exact same thing. Like that's my life in a nutshell. And I have nothing in common with that guy. But you realize quickly you're not the only one and that there are people that have gone through this and that are in the process of beating it and have gotten to the right side of it. And you can get that same salvation yourself.
Well, the mark of a good book, and you're talking to an author of 3 books, is when somebody sits down and reads your book and they're vicariously living through your words and your stories and they're thinking about themselves, that's a good book. Okay. Yeah. Because when people are telling stories about themselves, when grandparents are telling stories about their grandkids, whoever they're telling the stories to, it's probably another grandparent and they want to tell you about their grandchildren. But the beauty of a book is you have the time to think about like, yeah, man, I know what Steve's saying here. Yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. Or they may look at it and say, I know what he's talking about, but my experience is a little bit different. But you see where I'm getting at here, Steve?
Yeah. Everybody can relate to it.
They're thinking about themselves. And because that's the human condition, it all comes back to us. And I think you captured that beautifully. And it's a good read. It's not a dark read. It's wildly entertaining, but it's brutally honest. And I think that's what we want from authors and storytellers is like, tell me everything. And if there's something you left out, I don't know what it is because I just feel like, wow, I was right there and I was struggling with you and I can't recommend it enough. And I wish you great success with that and with the program and your podcast as well. When you have the news to announce, let's reconnect. Does that work for you?
Definitely will do. Yeah, we're excited about where we're headed, and I think it'll be a huge splash in the game of golf, and it'll provide a lot of people some avenues that they can't find right now. So we're definitely excited.
Well done. Well, you're my friend.
I appreciate you having me on.
You're a golfer, and so therefore we're friends by definition. I hope we can stay friends over the long haul. So Thank you for your time and continue good success and sobriety. Okay, Steve?
Awesome, Kevin. Appreciate the time. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yep. Big thanks to Steve Wheatcroft. Again, his book is Cocktails and Range Balls, Once Too Many, 10's Not Enough. He's also the CEO and founder of the Mulligan Foundation, so check that out. Big thanks to Party Drinks, our title sponsor. Big thanks to the Golf Real Estate Pros at suncoastdreams.com, division of fine properties in Sarasota. Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Vizicaro got you covered. And if you need to unwind, and sometimes you just need to unwind, go to Biolit Spa in downtown Sarasota. For Steve Wheatcroft, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time. Party Time, my golf story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, my golf story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.